The official schedule gets released tomorrow, and with that, all kinds of things coming out of Dolphin land. High praise for some players you might not have expected, and maybe one that you might have. The squad show starts now.
Hey, happy Wednesday. Great day to be a Dolphin.
Happy Wednesday. Heard from the offensive assistants yesterday, getting defensive assistants today, so great week for some content.
Fins up. It's the Dolphin Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphin Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does. Right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every single day. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. That is Jeff Zgonina, former Dolphin, and the ultimate Miami Dolphins insider, Kyle Krabs, as we come to you Mondays and Wednesdays for the most part during the offseason. And then, of course, during the season, one of the shows every week is after every Miami Dolphins game. And we get more and more excited. The schedule gets released tomorrow. We've had the rookie camp and lots of things going on in Dolphins land. Kyle, I want you to kick it off, man. You talked about the offensive assistants. High praise for Malik Willis. High praise for Saba, and could be a centerpiece of this offensive line. So some interesting things said yesterday by the offensive assistants for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me, whether it's HAFLEY, John Eric Sullivan, Bobby Slowik, who spoke yesterday, quarterbacks coach Bush Hamden, Kevin Patullo, the passing game coordinator, this is the first time we've heard from a lot of these guys. And one thing that we've really admired about the offseason thus far is the consistent messaging from the guys at the top of the food chain. Well, now we get the guys that are the coaching staff, and they're talking about a lot of the same things as being the best parts and the needle-moving parts of the players that are brought in, like Malik Willis. And they talk about the way he goes about his business and kind of the quiet confidence that he has and how his teammates gravitate towards him. And look, there's no adversity right now. I get that, right? It's April and May, but we've seen some peaks of him doing things that go above and beyond just showing up when he's required to show up for a team that's desperate for somebody to be a leader and somebody to take the reins and want to be the starting quarterback. And he has a chance to do that, and he's doing all the right things. But the fact that the coaches have the same messaging about the things that are important to them, I think is a really neat kind of extension of something that we have talked about in weeks past, where we've only been hearing from the head coach and the GM.
And Z, what's all that coach speak all about on a day like that, where you hear about Malik Willis, you hear about Jonah, and possibly him being a centerpiece of the offensive line? We know tactical measures are always in play from coaches, and they say things for different reasons, psychologically, whatever. But what do you make of all that?
Well, the great thing is, like, Kyle just mentioned, everybody's talking the same thing, which is key. That's what you want out of a staff. That's what you want out of an organization, that everybody's on the same page, has the same message and the same path to get to the final result. And that's what's great right now. I get it. Like he said, there's no, adversity or anything going, losses or injuries or anything happening right now, but everybody's got the same message. Everybody's working, towards that championship, because heck, there's 32 #1 seeded guys right now in the league. As in everybody's got the same record, everybody's, in first place, and everything's, rosy and peachy out there. So it's easy to talk that way, but it's great to see that everybody's on the same page, because I've been on staffs where, man, this time of year, I didn't know what direction we were going, because things are getting thrown around, offense is better than the defense is better than the offense, and you just don't know. But again, it's a new staff. Everybody, a lot of guys did work together. Some didn't, but they seem like they're all gelling and they're all speaking the same message. And to me, it's exciting.
And we talked a little bit about this, leading into this week before the minicamp, just what we would see on the field. And we knew what they got with their draft picks, but with Malik Willis showing up. And then the things, look, Bobby Slowik said about Malik Willis, and I believe this is a complete quote. It might be a little bit off, but he can sling it all over the field, which means he can make every throw, which is something they haven't had at that position for the past few years with Tua, because he could not make deep throws and he couldn't throw a wet ball. There were a lot of throws that Tua couldn't make, especially last year, and it just kept getting progressively worse. But I was more interested, Kyle, in what Kevin Patullo had to say. And of course, the Jalen Hurts comparisons are going to come in with Malik Willis. They're flying all over the place right now. He's a Super Bowl winner. He's also a polarizing figure. He's had trouble getting along with his receivers and so forth, but maybe not from that standpoint as much as what he can do physically, the comparisons to Jalen Hurts, and then Patullo talking about this offense and about, his experience with the Eagles and with Hurts and how that can help Malik Willis.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I thought the most interesting thing that Kevin Patullo said to me was he talked about, he was with Philly from 21 through this past year, which was when Jalen Hurts took over. And he talked about helping to build an offense kind of from the ground up, and you're figuring out what guys are capable of doing and being, and you're tailoring your offensive system to put guys in positions to be successful. And that helped them reach some very lofty heights. Now, obviously, Patullo reached a certain stratosphere of responsibility where there was a lot of speculation and criticism about the job that he did last year as the offensive coordinator. But, for him to be a passing game coordinator and to have that learned experience, at some point, some of it also just comes down to what are your guys capable of doing? And we haven't really seen a lot of evolution from Jalen Hurts as a quarterback too. So you kind of paint yourself into a corner a little bit. And that was kind of the let Russ cook thing with the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, right? It's a big call to let Russell Wilson take over more of the offense. And then they finally did it. And it was like, hold on, maybe we should not let Russ cook. Maybe we should run the ball more like we were doing when Pete Carroll was there in Seattle. So I think those are, I get cautious about being too worked up about like what Patullo's reputation was based off 25 in Philadelphia. And I think he's somebody that will have the potential to give a lot of great insight as you are figuring out what these guys are capable of doing. And the good news is the guys that take advantage of their opportunities this year, because they are building the whole thing from scratch with the experiences that he had in Philadelphia, and now they're going to try to do here in Miami. You should be able to put those guys that make the most of those opportunities should get really optimized roles, because there's nobody that's a pre-existing player in a pre-existing role other than like Devon Achane and the center and the left tackle, who are very well-established players. So the fact that it's such a blank canvas, Patullo talking about having experience doing that in Philadelphia and building an offense, I think having done it before will be very helpful, especially for a defensive-minded coach in Jeff Hafley, who's trying to be involved at this point in time with the entirety of the team.
Yeah, and the Eagles, by the way, Z, were coming off a 4-11-1 season when he went there and took over Kevin Patullo, and you talk about the year that he got there, right? And it coincided with Jalen Hurts, but that was also the year that they drafted Devontae Smith, and that year they started 2-5, but they won 7 of their last 9 games, and the Dolphins would take that this year, no doubt. I mean, a slow start is kind of what we're all expecting. I was watching the Joe Rose show, and he said, you're not looking for wins and losses. And shout out to Joe, a true icon in the South Florida community as a player and as a guy talking sports for all these years, the big dog. And Kyle, by the way, you can catch Kyle on that show. He's a regular on the Joe Rose show. But when Joe said this, I thought, Z, it was poignant and it was dead on. And it was, if you're looking for wins and losses, you might be disappointed. But if you're looking for improvement, for culture and players getting better every week, then you'll be pleasantly surprised with this team this year. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. I've talked about it. Again, you're building it from the ground up. That's been established. You got rid of some players. You drafted young. You got a lot of guys on 1-year contracts. This is a lot of prove-it contracts and a lot of time to rebuild and find out what we need and, what's going to work and what's not going to work. So, yeah, I mean, you're not looking to go to playoffs this year or even next year. I mean, next year would be great. We should make a nice run next year. But this team is going to be built to be year 3 is the year to show what this coaching staff and this front office has built and what the future holds for the Dolphins. So again, these next 2 years, I wouldn't expect runs to the Super Bowl. Now, if they come, I'd be more than happy. But I'm not putting all my eggs in a basket this year or next year for to be ecstatically happy every Sunday. I'm going to be ecstatically happy about the progress and the effort that's put on the field. But for an L or a W, I'm not going to be worried about that. I'm looking for good play.
Yeah, and Patullo didn't have a guy like Achane to involve in the passing game until Saquon Barkley came in, Kyle, but that was years later. And if you want one more Eagles comparison, as if we haven't beaten this horse to death already, but Chris Bell drawing comparisons to A.J. Brown. And that's another thing that's kind of being thrown around out there. So some familiarity, some things for Patullo to work with. And people talk about this receiver room, Kyle. And I know so many people think that's the biggest concern with this team heading into the season with Waddle gone, obviously Tyreek. And that was probably the number one position group on the team heading into the last couple of seasons would be the receiver room. This year, anything but. But looking at Tutu Atwell's highlights and then, thinking of Chris Bell and what he did at Louisville, Caleb Douglas, they have the potential to be a pretty good room as they develop. So to Z's point, the receiver room might mirror the growth of this team. At first, there'd be some mistakes, maybe not as great of performances as we'll see down the line. But as this group grows, do you feel like this could be the room, or do you feel like eventually they'll have to bring somebody in?
I think they'll probably keep stacking, but I don't know that it's like, wow, we are not going to have anybody we feel good about moving forward. I do think when you look at the offensive side of the ball with Malik Willis stepping in at quarterback and the projected starting five for the offensive line and the run game, and even the tight end room where Greg Dulcich made an awesome step forward last year. And it seems like they really seem to believe, based on John Eric Sullivan, he was effusive with his praise for Will Kazmarek as an in-blocking tight end. He said on Saturday that he thought he was, or Friday night of the draft, that he felt he was an upper echelon inline blocker in the league coming into the league. That's how highly they thought of his tape. If that ends up being true, you should have a workable offensive line and you should have a workable run game, and you have a quarterback that has dynamic play, and you have some tight ends that can do some specialized things. It's enough for me that I'm not worried that we're going to be 28th in offense this year. We're going to be able to move the ball. We'll be able to score some points. Now, are those guys on the perimeter going to be able to dictate if you fall behind 14, 17 points and light up the scoreboard? Are you going to have to try to be methodical with running the ball and slowly ooze your way back into a game? Like, that's where I think your game script is probably a little limited with all the youth that you have on the perimeter, but you have some explosive guys. Like, you have explosive athleticism. Now, you don't have prime Tyreek Hill explosive athleticism, but if that's your threshold for whether or not a guy's explosive or not, I don't know what to tell you, right? There's only a handful of cats that are like that. And like even Jaylen Waddle the last couple of years hasn't had that 2022 explosiveness where he led the league in yards per catch and had 1,380 yards or whatever it was on 70-something catches. So I think they have some pieces to work with. Do they have a top of the wide receiver room guy? No. Do you need that? Not necessarily. Like Green Bay doesn't have that guy right now, but they have a lot of depth in the other areas of the offense, and they have a lot of depth in the wide receiver room.
The one thing that concerns me is it doesn't concern me. I won't say concerns. That's the wrong word. Things that I'm looking at, look at the preseason rankings and, the Dolphins quarterback room is ranked as the 6th worst in the league and the receiver room is ranked as the 2nd worst. The offensive line's ranked 30th and 31st and I'm looking at that and I'm going, how do you take an offensive line anchored by Aaron Brewer that had the Patrick Paul performance from a year ago with a top 15 pick in Kadyn Proctor, and the things that the coaches are saying about Jonah Saba with a healthy, potentially Austin Jackson? I think that's at least a middle-of-the-road offensive line. I think that will be, other than Achane, the strength of this offense. And, Z, I think that unit's going to surprise a lot of people. If Proctor can come together quickly playing guard, I think they could be elite by week 4, week 5. What do you think?
Well, I think so, too. I mean, again, it's freaking May, Grease. Again, I always bring this up. You can't read into this stuff. It's May. We just had the draft. I mean, of course, because we finished, so bad. We have a new coach and this and that. That's why you're down low. They're not going to rank an O-line or anything high when you just fired the coach. You got a new coach, a new general manager, and everything else in there. You can't be ranked high. You work your way up, and you want to be at the bottom and work your way up. It's better to work up than fall down. Because if you're up high and then you fall down, then, the boo birds out there coming out of the woodworks. So this way we're going to build up. We're not going to really sneak up anybody. We're going to work our way up, and everybody's going to take notice. And like you said, hopefully by midseason, we have a pretty good offensive solid line. Because, again, we invested. We got some good players. You're coming back. So we have a good chance, for that unit to surprise some people or to prove themselves earlier than a lot of other rooms. Kyle,
what's your take on that offensive line?
Yeah, I think, man, like the rankings aside, because it's like, okay, what's their PFF grade last year and what round were they drafted? Like,
first off, Kyle, excuse me, PFF is garbage. All right. Again, I've been a coach. Well, I am on PFF as a player, but you got to have like the ultimate package to find my
see
take.
if I can look you up.
Just the 09. I think the only 09's the only one on there. Those were the Cowboys. They had it, and I forgot somehow they didn't download it on my hard drive, so I'm a little upset about that. But whatever. But yeah, that PFF ranking, they give everybody a sack. Even if it's a half a sack, you get counted as a full sack. So I don't. I'm not a true believer in the PFF rankings. Go ahead, Kyle. Sorry, I had to get my.
No, I think PFF has a number of things that provide value, but their player game and season rankings are not on the list for me. Like I don't care what the grades say. Like I know, what was it, 2 years ago? Snoop Huntley had his game against the Colts was graded better than like any Tua Tagovailoa game that was played in 2020. Like it just didn't that doesn't correlate to me. Snoop was not very good in the Colts game, right? But he still had the best quarterback performance of any quarterback in a single game for the Dolphins in 2024. Not for me. But those are the kinds of things that fuel into some of those algorithms because, especially for offensive lines, right? Like how else would you quantify it? You'd watch the tape on all the players.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these resources that have the rankings for all 32 don't do is watch the games for all the players and grade the offensive linemen individually based on their own sets of eyeballs, right? So Patrick Paul, to your point, Grease, was graded on one of those as a below average starter, Patrick Paul, with what his season was last year. Because his PFF grade was in the 50, 61 or whatever it was like, and he wasn't a first round pick, so the pedigree's not. It's like I could give two family-friendly program blanks about it, right? I think this, and I know we got to go to break, so I can finish after the break, but I actually think the offensive line has a chance to be one of the best units on this team next year. And I'll leave it at that because I know we're going to get a break.
All right, we'll pick up right there on the other side. And a big move happening for Jonah Savaiinaea. If you haven't seen it, it may really help him. He's going back to the side he played in college. We'll pick up on that and more on the other side. The Squad Show rolling on right after we tell you a little bit about Rocket Money. Rocket, yeah. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You are not alone. You're in great company, my friend. You're not by yourself there. But keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills, it gets overwhelming fast in this day and age. You can never talk to a human. You just have to do everything. I'm getting triple billed by ESPN right now every month. That is where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot. Helps you cancel the ones, are you listening, Disney, that you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money's going. What a novel concept, right? You can set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized, like a check register used to, and it gives you a clearer picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings, your investments, whatever you want to do with your cash. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon for Rocket. Yeah, Rocket Money on the Locked On Podcast Network. I think Joe Elliott better watch out, man, with me singing that Rocket song. He's getting old. Have you ever seen that? Z? You ever seen him live? Oh, they were great, man. The music isn't the same as I saw Motley Crue with Carrie Underwood on American Idol. That's how old I am. The guys in Motley Crue are out there with their walkers. They can't even move, and Carrie Underwood's dancing all over the stage. But we continue with the Squad Show.
Wait. You're going to say you watch American Idol?
No, I watch some videos.
I'm going to have to get off this show.
I don't watch any shows. I watch clips on social media, and I follow Motley Crue, and they did a song with Carrie Underwood on the finale.
Okay, whatever. Backpedal.
So there's no backpedal. It's the truth, man. It's what it is. And I did watch American Idol like way back in the day, now that I think about it.
You watched it last night, probably.
Season 1 or 2. But, I mean, what's wrong with American Idol, by the way? Making people's dreams come true?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Can you sing, Z?
Is it still going? Is it still going?
It's still going, yeah.
Is it really?
The only
Yeah.
person who might have better hair than Kyle Krabs, Ryan Seacrest.
No, there's some other folks other than Ryan, but that's okay.
Oh, man. But we're still talking about the Miami Dolphins here. Guys whose heads are covered in helmets. But, man, no, the offensive line, there's no way I think that unit's going to be. I'm with Kyle on that one. I think they're going to be, one of the strengths of this team, if not right away, then as the season goes on. And I found it interesting, when Zach Yenser comes out and says, hey, I think Jonah's going to be better because he's going to have more confidence switching back to the right. I want to get Kyle's thoughts on this. And then, Z, I want to get your thoughts on offensive linemen switching sides and how much of a difference it can make. But the quote is he has a lot of built-up reps on the right side. That's what we're going to do right now. Sully made the comment that we're going to keep Kadyn at left and move Jonah. Big part of the whole draft process, conversation we had with Jonah when we first got here, like, hey, man, you played on the right side. So they say, Kyle, that he's excited to move back to the side that made him a second-round pick out of the University of Arizona. No more Daniels getting in the way.
Yeah, he was not shy, or did not shy away, I should say, during training camp last year, being asked about the switch to the left side and playing left guard. He was pretty candid. He's like, yeah, this is pretty tough, right? Like it's you have to invert your entire muscle memory. And he had spent some time in college. I think it was the third highest position that he had snapped at it, but was left tackle. But most of that was several years before the year that he came out. And I think it showed. Now, was there some technical stuff with him that regardless of whether he was a left side or right side player, it would have given him hard times? Yeah, I think absolutely. But for all of the muscle memory that he has on the right side, I do think by keeping Kadyn Proctor there on the left side, you have a chance to get both of those guys to kind of fulfill that coach-ism of putting players in the best position to be successful. Because you go back to last year, and I remember Frank Smith saying that they put, like, it was a big speculation for months on where Jonah was going to play, and then it was always going to be the left guard. He's next to Patrick Paul. And they said, well, we felt he's best there. And then Frank Smith was finally like, it was like October or something. He was like, yeah, a chance to get Jonah next to Pat and two young guys and have them grow up together. It was like, okay, so like, there's a little bit more than just we think he's best at left guard. You wanted to have that pair of young guys to grow and groom together, which you understand. But, you kind of come in with the hot seat elements of the team, and then the left guard or the right guard goes down 3 snaps into the season, and Jonah's got to ride all this out. And he was a player who, when you look back at what they're doing for him now, what he was coming out of college, I personally did feel like that was one of those ones that you were trying to find the best combination of 5 as compared to individually for a young player, putting him in the best position to be successful, because I felt that would have been right guard. So to find out he's going back to right guard, and Proctor, this is what Bobby Slowik said yesterday, he's been on the left side his entire college career. We're going to keep him on the left side. He said we're going to cross-train him at tackle and guard, but side switches we feel are harder than guard inside-outside switches. And, to not have to change his stance, I think that's a really interesting shift from what we just saw last year, and we know how that worked out last year. But I think that does give you a chance to honestly say that you put both Kadyn Proctor and Jonah Savaiinaea in position to be successful, because they're on the side of the center where the vast majority of their time on task and reps have been collected as players.
Z, what's that mean to go from the left to the right for an offensive guard?
Well, for anybody, it's, in the interior line on both offense and defense of line, it's a big change, because, you put a different hand down, you're going off a different foot, the timing's different, you get different, especially, right-handed, left-handed quarterback that puts in, because you got to know where he's going to be in the pocket, where his vision is, his throwing arm, where you got to make sure you knock guys down and stuff. So all that comes into play. So if you're going back somewhere you're comfortable, where you don't have to think about it, where, like Kyle said, muscle memory, it's just easier. I remember, when I was in college, nobody wanted to be the right side of the defensive line because you'd be in a left-handed stance. No one could come out of a left-handed stance in the D-tackle room. So I'm like, I'll go over there and play. I'm a right-handed guy, but I went over there and played. And I played, started 2 years on that side just because I wanted to play. And I ended up winning a starting job because no one else could do it. But then again, and then after that, I was playing on both sides. It didn't make a difference. But, it just helps. It helps to be, where everything's coming. You're used to it. Your vision's, in the right spot. Your eyes are in the right spot. You pick up games a lot easier, and you know your weaknesses, because everybody has weaknesses, and the D line's looking at them. So, but if you're comfortable with knowing them, and you've had them for your whole career, in college or whatever, being on the right side, then you got to move to the left side. You're getting exposed, and now you look bad, to your teammates, to your coaches, to the fans, and then the fans start bashing you because you're trying to learn. You're trying to learn to get that muscle memory switched, and it takes a while. But now that he's comfortable moving back, it should be good for him. And
how much of a mind F is that, Z, for him last year? Because I will throw away last year for him if he plays better this year. But how much of a mind F would that have been for a young kid?
Big time. Because you don't want to go out there and fail. Because you got drafted in the second round. There's a reason why you got drafted in the second round. Because you were playing the right side and you were pretty darn good. And now you play the left and you're giving up sacks, you're giving up missing blocks or whatever because you're just trying to learn the position. It's hard. It's hard. It wears on you because you don't want to look bad out there. And that's why they're putting the rookie on the left, because he's always played on the left. They're not setting him up for failure. I'm not saying they sent Jonah up for failure, but they're making sure they got it right now. At least going to try to make it right by putting him at left guard, the rookie, and moving Jonah back to where he's comfortable from college on the right side.
Kyle, 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. Couple of guys super young, right? 3 of them in Proctor and Jonah and Patrick Paul. And then you look at the other 2 guys, the best offensive lineman you have was an undrafted free agent. But and that's Aaron Brewer. But other than that, you got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and all of them still right there in their 20s, ready to either enter their prime or hitting it now.
You're mute, Kyle.
You're muted, Kyle.
There's a lot invested in this group, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's, I know everybody thinks back to the quote in 23 with Chris Grier, and you guys are a little bit more worried about the offensive line than we are. And the shame about that quote is that line was good. They just had backups playing at 4 or 5 spots for more than half the snaps throughout the course of the season, right? So this goes back to the thought that I had right before the first break on why I think this can be one of the best units. This group is not talent deficient. Austin Jackson, when on the field, has been an impactful starter. Is he an upper echelon tackle in football? No, but he's been an impactful player. And I think his style of play fits with what the Dolphins want. And I think having a quarterback that can get off his spot can probably help Austin, where like some of his worst losses have been in 3rd and 12 with a speed rusher that can go speed to power on the outside, and he misses off the edge, and it's a fast win to the quarterback, and the quarterback's just getting to the top of the drop and can't get off the spot, right? Like some of those I think can be mitigated with a little bit more of an athletic off-the-spot quarterback. Jonah should be a better player, and we've seen plenty of offensive linemen come into the league and from year 1 to year 2 or from year 2 to year 3 make significant leaps, right? And Jonah seems like he's doing everything the right way to try to put himself in position to do that. Brewer, second team All-Pro, Patrick Paul was excellent last year, and you got a first-round pick in Kadyn Proctor. So you take that with what you can get as far as extra gaps in the run game because of the quarterback's threat to run the football. You have Achane with his speed, but I also have a little stat. I'm going to give you guys a little stat. There were 12 running backs in football last year that logged at least 3 runs that topped out at least 20 miles per hour. Achane's one of the 12, but so is Jaylen Wright. So Jaylen Wright, as a guy who was not good his first season, he flashed against the Patriots in 24 and then kind of had a quiet rest of season. And then this past year got a little bit more run. Looked like maybe there was going to be a little bit more breakout. Looked like Ollie Gordon had that second running back role early, and then it became more of Wright later in the season. This is a player that has a lot of explosiveness and has a little bit more between the tackles presence if you want to platoon these guys. Between the tackles, inside zone ability with Jaylen Wright, where I think that's where he's best served. Achane obviously is a 3-down player, but the outside speed, the quarterback pull run game that he has to get an extra gap in the run game and how you have to choose to defend that. All of that adds up to me with a group that if you're serious about setting the line of scrimmage and running the football, I think they can be very successful in this element of their team this year as a starting point for everything that they do.
Z, you got anything else to add on the line before we hit the break?
No, I just, like I said, it's gonna be, interesting to watch them grow together, and build. And I think they're gonna be solid, as the year goes on. It's gonna be shaky in the beginning because new guys and everything, and but I'm excited for them because I think like Kyle said earlier, it's probably our best depth room right now on paper. So we'll see what happens.
Some young, hungry dogs, no doubt about it. This is your Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network, #1 sports podcast network in the world, #7 channel, and climbing thanks to Kyle Krabs, your man on the right. He's got Square in a minute. But Kyle, before we do, let's talk about the Everydayer Club. You have to check out the Everydayer Club if you're a regular viewer or listener of the show or of Locked On Dolphins or any other shows on the network for that matter. Ad-free episodes, access to a group chat with Kyle, other listeners and viewers of the show. And Kyle, we talk about it every day, but LockedOnDolphins.supercast.com for the Everydayer Club, the life's blood of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Yeah, you get ad-free episodes of the program, access to the Locked On community Discord where you can get off some of the mess of social media, get around some like-minded people, talk some trash to fans from other teams, and it's our most coveted group of listeners, all of our everydayers, those of you who are so invested in the platform that allow us to do stuff like this. I'm glad that there's a place that we could carve out for you guys to have the best experience that you can with the show.
He can sling it all over the yard. Malik Willis is the subject of our conversation. On the other side, the new Dolphins QB, people getting excited about his leadership. The coach is getting excited about his skills. We'll talk about that on the other side. First, Kyle has Square right here on your Dolphin Squad show.
Support for today's episode comes from Square, the system that helps fix one of its biggest headaches in running a business. Starting a business is exciting, but actually running can be where things get complicated fast. Payments, inventory, staff, scheduling, online orders. It's a lot to manage. That's why Square brings everything together into one connected system. Square helps you take payments, track sales, manage inventory, and keep your business running smoothly without juggling a bunch of disconnected tools. As a customer, it's convenient. And from the business side, you could tell it helps owners stay focused on serving people instead of constantly troubleshooting systems. If you're starting a business or running one that deserves better tools, Square helps you sell, manage, and grow without slowing down. Right now, you can get up to $200 off Square hardware at square.com/go/LockedOnNFL. That's SQUARE.com/go/LockedOnNFL. Run your business smarter with Square. Get started today.
There you have it. Rolling on with the Squad show. By the way, we're live on YouTube, and then we upload, you download Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher.
Grease, can't hear you again.
Oh, you're living good, so don't worry about it.
There we go. I know.
Can't hear you either, Kyle.
Uh-oh. Hold on, Z. Let
Kick
me
him
help
out.
you here. All right. Is that better? No, just kidding. Anything, Z?
There, I got you now.
Welcome back.
Damn it.
Welcome back.
All right, so there we go. It wasn't, and by the way, this thing just is all over the place today. There we go. That should be the rundown on the side there, right? So there we have it. And I apologize for that. But we are rolling on with the Squad show, and you see there Malik momentum, if there's such a thing after a rookie camp, when we really haven't seen the Dolphins QB1 on the field much at all yet, but he stopped by rookie camp. We know what he did we talk all the time about the limited number of attempts in his career, Kyle, but we probably don't talk enough about the success that he had within that limited number of attempts in Green Bay that landed him this job in Miami with one of his former coaches and not his former GM, but a guy who was on the staff who got the GM job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of in 2020 when they were getting ready to draft a quarterback, and I was doing draft work that year, and I remember talking with Joe Marino, who I do Locked On NFL scouting with, and we had like a big conversation talking about the value of the quarterback who can maximize within a structure of a play versus the quarterback that can thrive in the outside of structure play. And then you just need to try to refine and harness his skills to play inside of structure, right? And weighing those two things out. And that was, at the time, Justin Herbert and Jordan Love were the two quarterbacks that Joe and I were having this conversation with, whether Herbert was kind of like, You question the outside of structure stuff based off the Oregon offense, and obviously he's done very well for himself inside and outside of structure in the NFL. But then Jordan Love was like this wild stallion that you had to tame a little bit. And they've done well with that with LaFleur in Green Bay. And obviously he had several years to sit. Well, now Malik's had several years to sit, but you watch him in the opportunities that he's had the last 2 seasons, and you see this player that has this quick twitch mind and eye to go with quick twitch athleticism and a big time arm. And I think when you watch the Baltimore game back and all the reps from this past year, you saw some areas for cleaning up that you'd like to think if you were a coach, right? Because every coach would like to believe, hey, if this guy's wired the right way and I get my hands on him, I can make him the best version of himself. We can get there, right? He has all of the uncoachables, and you'd like to think a lot of the things that were room for growth for him are things that could get better with more time on task. And I think that's where for Malik Willis, he had really impressive flashes of in structure, and he thrived when he had to make plays outside of structure, when the defense had the answers and I have to make something happen on my own. So the question for Malik is, how efficient can you get at the routine elements of the position with the ball placement and the accuracy and the timing and the footwork? And if all that gets better with time on task, like, the Dolphins are going to have something here at quarterback. It's not guaranteed, but if it happens, they're going to have something.
Z, I'm looking at some things that Bobby Slowik said about Malik Willis. And by the way, Bobby Slowik has got to be, he's got to be feeling like anything could be better than CJ Stroud, because he was having to run the ball almost all the time in Houston. He was getting ripped by the fan base for running too much and not throwing the ball enough, but we saw why in CJ Stroud. But when he talked about Malik Willis, he talked about the balance, about running the ball 50-50 on first, and then his legs, obviously a big part of what Willis adds to the equation, but he can absolutely throw the ball all over the field as well. So if he plays well within that skill set, he can do everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, this guy's a triple threat, quarterback here now. I mean, this guy can do it all. So, Bobby's going to tap into that. Of course, Bobby's still going to have his run game. He's going to run, shrink the game and shrink the, the sticks for the quarterback. But he also knows this quarterback can make every throw, right? And then if he can't make the throw or something happens, he can, run for that first down, which is a great thing to have, and it puts a lot more stress on the defense, for them to, how they're going to, set their defense, how they're going to defend it. So now you have somebody always, spying him, so to speak, or someone's responsible for him, either a defensive lineman or a linebacker or even a safety. So it takes him out of the coverage aspect of it. So it's going to help, so to me, if he hits on this and, this quarterback, improves and, progresses the way that we all think he's going to, it's a win-win for the team and the quarterback. Because, again, this quarterback has got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to prove that he was not a bust there in Tennessee, And, I think then that motivation helps, and that's something good that, to have in our back pockets. This guy's more motivated to succeed and to show everybody that he's not a failure.
No, and Bobby Slowik said it's like playing 11 on 11, Kyle, instead of 11 on 10, because when you're playing with a quarterback who can only sit back there and throw, it's 11 on 10 for the defense. And I thought that was a pretty poignant quote, especially coming off the 2 years with all the injury concerns, the concussions, the hip, where he was basically a sitting duck back there if he didn't get rid of the ball on a 3 or 4 count.
Yeah, I think it's there's a calibration that I think is going to come from watching Miami's offense, just because it has been, the 4 years under Mike McDaniel was so balls out fast, right? Is 2.3, 2.25, if Tua's holding the ball for 2.45 seconds, he's holding on to it for a long time, and it's a big deal, right? Like, it was a big deal midway through last year when he was holding the ball for 2.6 seconds. There's some guys that average a quarter of a second longer than that for an entire season of 600 pass attempts. But it was a big deal for a 6-week period of time that Tua's holding the ball for more than 2.5 seconds. Like, I do think, and I would expect there will be a lot of timing elements within this offense, just based off of the family that it's coming from, with Bobby and his time with Kyle Shanahan and being another coach off that tree. But, if the pass protection ends up prospering in a way that it can, because opposing teams don't know coming into every single game, all right, our target is the launch point for the top of the drop. And if he gets off of it, then it's a win for us, right? Because that's generally how teams kind of rushed against Miami. That can make it hard for an offensive line to pass protect too, because they don't have to worry about giving up the interior gaps or overrunning or getting pinned inside. Because if you do, Tua wasn't really a guy that was going to make you pay with his legs in that regard with any level of consistency. So the game plan coming in is get to the launch point, get to the top of the drop, get to the top of the drop. Well, now you get to the top of the drop, and if you run a twist and you get washed out and you're knocked out in the C gap, Malik Willis is going to take off for 20 yards, right? So that element of his game can make the pass protection better. It can make the entire feel of the offense completely different. So that's why I say, like, come into this, give it a fair chance, because you just don't know what it's going to look like when there's such a dramatic shift in skill set at the quarterback position, because it sets everything that you do.
So we're looking at the depth chart right now, sticking with you, Kyle. I see Malik Washington, Jalen Tolbert, and Caleb Douglas listed as the 3 starters, with Bell, Atwell, and Coleman Jr., and then, of course, Taj Washington and Terrace Marshall Jr., Theo Weiss Jr. But when I look at those guys, I've seen some big touchdowns from Tutu Atwell. He's a home run hitter. Kevin Coleman Jr. could really be a big-time playmaker in the league, and people are raving about Caleb Douglas. So I wonder, as camp, and this is pure speculation, but, I mean, it's May, and we have to do shows. We have to come up with things. But I wonder who's going to be, because every quarterback, when they come into a new situation, they find their go-to guy early on in camp, and that becomes their guy from the start. I wonder who that's going to be for Malik. Should we start taking odds here on the show?
Well, I think the name to know is Jalen Tolbert, because they came through the draft process together. They were at the Senior Bowl together. They were on the same team at the Senior Bowl. I mean, Tolbert's been doing throwing sessions with Malik going back late March, So I think that extra time on task, I think that's what sets Chris Pell behind a little bit, because you're worried about when is he going to be able to get on the field with his rehab. And I think that puts Jalen Tolbert in a really good position to have a pre-existing rapport. And if that chemistry exists, I think that puts you in the driver's seat.
What's it like to get behind a new QB like this, Z? Fresh blood in the building, most important position on the field. You did it with Kurt Warner, although that was from an injury, to Trent Green, who also, by the way, had just come in to the Rams organization on that big deal from, I believe, Washington, the Redskins at the time. Any other times in your career, or is it the Warner situation? Just any insight that you have on a new QB coming in and bringing that fresh new attitude and expectations coming into the building?
Well, I mean, it always gives you, a little pep in your step, on both sides of the ball, because you got the organization went out and paid someone a bunch of money to come help you win some football games, so you get excited about it. Now you're excited up until the point until they, S the bed, then you're like, oh, should have went a different route. You'll always be a naysayer, but I was fortunate. Trent came in, and Trent was lighting it up in preseason before he got hurt.
He was,
and then we got lucky, and Kirk came in and kept it rolling. So I mean, that was a great situation for us there in St. Louis. But again, the Dolphin days, we had a whole bunch of quarterbacks come through there when I was there. And you got excited, and then you're like, oh, and then in Washington, when I was with the Redskins, Commanders, the Washington football team, and all that garbage over there, we had quarterbacks come through there. You get excited, then you're like, ugh, so you hope it's not a here with Malik. I don't think it's going to be. I think this kid's going to do some good things for us, and he's going to, get the crowd going, and that's all that matters.
Let's see if Z still has PTSD or if he did his EMDR, Kyle. Jay Fiedler, Ray Lucas, AJ Feely.
There was more than that, though. There was Gus Farrat.
It was Ray Lucas.
Yeah, no, I wasn't there for Ray.
You weren't there, but you just missed Ray.
Yeah.
AJ Feely, you were there, right?
Oh yeah.
AJ Touchy Feely, we used to call him.
Dante Culpepper.
Oh, Culpep, the big Pep. We got excited for Pep until we saw him throw, and I go,
yep.
And you were like the Purdue guy going, Drew Brees, anyone, please, God.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. They chose Culpepper over Brees under any
don't do it.
Oh, all right. Well,
we've been having a nice day. I don't want to ruin it.
That
Malik Willis for the win. Malik Willis in the Pro Bowl. Let's go. No, it's going to be – I think the receivers are going to – I mean, look, NFL receivers are NFL receivers on some level, right, Z? I mean, just because they're unknown doesn't mean they're not good players, because you don't make it to the damn NFL if you're not. Let's be real.
I made it, Grease.
Well, I mean, you were a great player. You're Big Ten Player of the Year. I'm not going to go down that road with you. I'm smart.
No. I mean, you made it to the league. Yeah, you did something good, and now it's just about getting better and staying as long as you can. And
I'm
that's
still on you beating out 2 first-rounders, one from Ohio State and one from Miami, and Z beats them both out, Damian Lewis and Ryan. And I remember Damian Lewis and Ryan Pickett being drafted in that same draft. And yeah, it's amazing that you were able to beat both those guys out, because it's hard to beat out a first-round pick anyway. But then, obviously you have to really be that much better to do it. So it's interesting to see the dynamics and how things are changing. Speaking of which, we have to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap it up here on the Squad Show. Maybe go around the league a little bit, get some final thoughts from Z and Kyle. Having fun, as always, with the former Dolphin, Jeff Zgonina, and Dolphins insider of Locked On Dolphins, Kyle Krabs. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Grease. Hang out with us through the end. We're almost through with another episode of your Dolphin Squad Show. And let me tell you about Game Time. It's getting close, right? Getting close. The season, well, not that close, but closer. Every time you hear the tick, 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 we can stream anything. We can order food in minutes. We can do everything from our phones. And somehow, buying tickets to live events still feels way harder than it should be. Long lines, confusing checkout, prices jumping at the last second. It shouldn't be that complicated. That's why there is Game Time. It gives you, the fan, the advantage and makes getting tickets fast and simple. I love Game Time. I'm a boomer. I love all technology, right? I used to have to wait in line, or it would get mailed, and my mom would put the tickets on the fridge and go, we're going to see Marino in Foxborough in a month. You're like, don't touch the tickets, don't lose the tickets. Don't spill anything on the tickets. Well, not anymore, right? I was just looking at tickets for the upcoming season. Took me minutes to find great options. You can see the full price up front. No surprise fees at checkout. Seat views are huge. Right in your phone or wherever you're looking, your tablet, you can see the view from the seat before you buy it. And zone deals. I love the zone deals too, because you pick the section, Game Time picks the seat, and you save even more. 2 taps and you get the seats locked in. It's quick. It's easy. Actually makes you want to go to more events, as if you needed another reason. Come on. Excitement for the HAFLEY era. Let's go. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to every type of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON, METHOD, man, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today for Game Time on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Kyle, we lost Z.
No, he texted. He's got to go. He's got a meeting. So It's
okay.
you and me to bring us home.
All right. I thought we had him for 10 more minutes, but what a job he does. What a privilege it is to do the show with him. I don't want to say it with him here because he'll kill me for it and he'll beat me up for 5 minutes, but the stories from Z are going to get us through the summer, man. I love it.
Yeah, it's great insight. And I think folks take for granted, like, he's an NFL defensive line coach, like as recently as last year, right?
Yeah.
Or 2024. So I mean, it's the insight that he provides with the experience that he has and the proximity that he's had to the game as recently as he's had it it's outstanding. And I learned something new from him every time I talk to him.
Yeah, same here. Same with you. I learned something new every show from you, a lot of things. And speaking of which, we have the end here. Where do you want to go with this? I mean, we talked about the offensive line. We talked about the receivers. We talked about Malik Willis. We haven't talked about the Achane contract situation, with more and more rumors swirling around that he might be traded, speculation as to what it might take for a trade to happen. But I feel like a lot of that is kind of like a lot of what we do in May, just digging for stuff.
Yeah, it feels like this window's shut. And, maybe somebody comes in and offers you a first round pick and is like, hey, we think we are really close to make a splash and we're going to go for it. And you can never say never, like, even if they do a contract extension, because the Jets just did this, right? The Jets just extended Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams and traded both of them. Like they traded, or they didn't just extend Quinnen Williams, but they extended Sauce Gardner in like August and traded him in November. Like, it was that fast of a turnaround. So you can never say never, but they feel like a team, Miami does right now, that knows that they have a chance to build an identity out. And it feels like Achane is one of those pieces. And I go back to the 23 Packers when it was Jordan Love first got the reins full time, and they moved on from Aaron Rodgers and they moved on from Devontae Adams, and the wide receiver room was 3 rookie wide receivers, 2 second-year wide receivers, 2 rookie tight ends that they drafted, and Aaron Jones is an established runner in the backfield. And that feels a lot like what this roster composition now is feeling like for the Dolphins. So you move on from the Achane piece of that. Now you're in kind of totally uncharted waters. I think you're really making it hard on yourself to have an identity and lean into that identity. And somebody have to really overpay. And if not, he's going to get a contract extension here. It's just a question of what the dollar amount is and how long it takes him to get it done, in my opinion.
And Patullo dropped a bomb. Did you catch Patullo saying once he's healthy?
I did catch that.
So maybe that's why he wasn't on the field at the first voluntary workout, but apparently still maybe dealing with the injury that cost him the final game of last season.
Yeah, and you never know what a guy's window is like for, like if he had to have a cleanup procedure or something like that, right? Like some of those guys, they get that done like early January. Some of those guys, they take a little time and their recovery window is 12 weeks and they say, okay, well, I'll let everything else heal and then I'll go in and I'll get it taken care of and cleaned out and I'll be good to go for minicamp, right? So like, it's hard to read too much into it, but I have to imagine nobody else in Dolphins land was too pleased to find out that Kevin Patullo made some level of allusion to Devon Achane needs to get healthy. Because like I saw that post from David Furones, and then the Dolphins put up the Kevin Patullo interview on their YouTube channel. And you know what part wasn't a part of it? The part that was posted there. So that caught my attention a little bit. Yeah.
This is what you get from Kyle Krabs, the minutia that nobody else catches, you catch on to. Speaking of which, I wonder if you have anything on Le'Veon Moss, man. He was pretty good in college. The injuries, I mean, his MCL and ACL in 24, ankle injury cost him 6 games last year, but they were excited about bringing him in as an undrafted free agent to help in the running back room. And then he abruptly just retires. And I know the team's not happy about it, but I wonder what happened there with Moss.
Yeah, I don't know anything that happened, but, you know, like you said, a guy who comes into the league and had never played 10 games in a college season in 4 years running. He played 9, 7, 7, and 9. He had a hamstring. He had an ankle. He had an ACL, MCL. He had an injury at the end of this past season. He turns 24 in November. So if you want to know why a guy doesn't get drafted, it's soon to be 24-year-old running back with durability questions who plays a physical style of football, right? So that was always going to be an uphill climb, in my opinion, for him to get drafted. The surprise is, you know, they gave him effectively practice squad equivalent guarantees. Like he was going to be guaranteed a practice squad based on the guaranteed money that they gave him to sign as a UDFA. And he chooses to retire 2 days after rookie minicamp wraps up. So I don't know what the deal is there, but the Dolphins will get that money. They'll get that recouped back, or at least the vast majority of that money recouped back. So on one hand, it's kind of no harm, no foul, but it is a very unique and odd situation to kind of see somebody go through the draft process and sign on with a team. And then after camp say, yeah, you know what? Never mind. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to hang it up.
Interesting. I wonder if he failed a physical or something. I don't know. It's crazy to think, but and you know the kid had NFL dreams. Real quick, I want to talk to you about the Dolphins. The schedule gets released tomorrow, right? A lot of leaks are coming out. One thing we know is that the Dolphins will travel more miles this year than any NFL team that's not going overseas. And also, Jeff Hafley said, hey, skip us, NFL. We're not going overseas.
Well, and yeah, that was the surprise for me, was kind of the news that they were not in the Mexico City game. They had been rumored for months, to be the team that was going to go play San Francisco and Mexico City. And then lo and behold, they drop out the full 9-game slate of international games, and Miami's not on the list. So that was a surprise to me. And Miami, you know, Central America, pretty good representation of fan base there. I'm very pro spreading the game nationally, but I am never going to complain about not having an international game because I know the tax it takes on the players, right? So that's the other silver lining. If they would have had one this year, is it would have been a road game. So they would have had 8 at home, 8 on the road, and 1 international. Now they'll have to play 9 true road games this year, which is just another kind of bullet point you can put on the perception of this schedule as we get into the start of OTAs and stuff like that.
And the schedule coming out tomorrow, I mean, it's such a big factor in the overall outcome of the season. I look at the Chiefs last year, started 1-7. They had 5 primetime games in the first 8 games of the season, and it took its toll on them. And this year, the Dolphins are going to travel more miles than any team that's not going overseas. And so that takes a toll. So I wonder, if you're, I mean, I don't know how you would react to that if you're a player on the team, but what's your thought when you see something like that they're going to travel more miles than any other team?
It's tough because this is a team that plays in a division where everybody else is bundled up on the opposite side of the Atlantic coast, right? Miami to New England, Miami to North Jersey, Miami to Western New York and Buffalo. Those are your divisional games. Those are 3 long travel trips for divisions, right? That's
why you like the realignment we talked about.
Yes, I think that is a thing that would really be helpful as far as the Carolina Panthers, and they play they get Atlanta, which is just down the road. I mean, I've done that drive a bunch of times going to the Senior Bowl.
Right there.
The Saints, which is a golf. The Bucks are on the golf. It's half the distance is what the other divisional games are, and then you got like Philly, where you got Dallas, but you got Washington and you've got New York. You could hop on 95, go an hour and 30 minutes either direction and just drive to the game.
Yeah.
So you take some of those divisional matchups and travel arrangements versus Miami, where they're the odd man out. So it helps you in the 3 games you're at home, but your 3 division games, it's not a short travel trip. So they're always going to be higher up on that list as compared to especially every other team in the AFC East, because those other teams in the AFC East, you're going from Boston to New York and you're going from Boston to Buffalo. It's not a big deal, but Miami's got to do it 3 times.
And I want to just throw something out here, Kyle, and get your raw reaction. Among the 11 teams with the easiest schedules in the NFL last year in terms of opponent strength of schedule, only 3 missed the playoffs. There was a tie at number 10. Only 3 missed the playoffs, so that's huge. And the Patriots, the team with the easiest schedule, made the Super Bowl. Now, here's a metric for you modern metrics people out there. Of the 5 teams with the best net rest differential, which is something that takes into account the rest between games that each team has coming into the matchup, 3 of the 5 top teams reached the playoffs, and the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. What do you think of those 2 metrics?
I think the net rest one, there's some real value in, especially across the course of a marathon. It's the kind of thing I'm a little less dialed in on this year for Miami, right? Because I kind of want them to have all the adversity. I want you to have it tough. I want you to have tough turnarounds. I want you to have tough opponents you have to play, because when it comes down to it, and if you become a successful team, there's going to become a period of time where you're going to have to go through the ringer, because everybody's going to want you in the primetime games, and you're going to put it on the standalone spotlights, and you're going to have all those hardships. And then your playoff schedule, you might get put on a Monday night game in the wild card round and then have to play on Sunday. And now you get short rest in the playoffs, right? Like, I kind of want this team to have to go through all that and learn how to deal with it so that you can mitigate it as best as you possibly can.
All right, that's Kyle Krabs, Locked On Dolphins. Before we give our final thoughts, what do you have coming up on the channel? I know the schedule is a big part of it.
Yeah, so we'll do a schedule release show tomorrow night, and then tomorrow's show will be reacting to all the defensive coach pressers, where today's show was reacting to all the stuff from the offensive assistants yesterday, and that should bring us home for the week. And then next week we'll kind of see what storylines we get from the schedule release and all that kind of stuff.
All right, and we'll have 2 squad shows next week as well. And I just want to say that my final thought is, the more we cover this team, the more we read, the more we watch, the more we see, the more the plan becomes more and more clear. And that's just something that we've talked about from the minute they brought in John Eric Sullivan. Then they add, Coach Jeff Hafley comes in, and then the draft and the players they drafted all fitting the mold, intelligent players who love to learn, who bring the dog every day, and they're going to fight, and they're going to scratch, and they're going to claw. And the whole entire organization, Kyle, is starting to mold into that right in front of our very eyes, which is absolutely what we had hoped for and wanted to see to this point.
Yeah. And it's in its infancy stages. It's kind of low stakes right now. And obviously the stakes will get higher and higher the deeper and deeper in that we go. And I agree with you that the the consistency is the biggest thing for me. The consistency in what they're looking for and finding players that have that. And now those guys got to live that, and they got to learn how to apply that to the NFL. And some of them will, some of them won't. Some of them will take longer to do it than others will. And you just hope that, and the nice thing is you feel like this entire group is going to be given the time to try to bring it to life the way that they want. I think that's my final thought would be Stephen Ross giving Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel the additional year when it was really sour how it ended in 24, and Chris Grier gets 9 years to try to build a team. Those things are helpful when Stephen Ross's reputation when he first buys the team is he's impulsive, right? And a little bit short-sighted, or the guys don't get long leashes. And that's the kind of thing that you've heard alluded to for John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley talk about why this job was appealing to them, was that they knew the owner was willing to play the long game, was willing to give football people time to build it out. And to the point where it was a critique for Stephen Ross at the end of 2024 that was like, oh man, I can't believe we're giving Chris Grier another year. Well, he did, because he wanted to give that final chance to go through that transition and see it through. It didn't work out. They've moved on. And now everybody's starting at the clean slate, which has never happened before in the Ross regime. And he has now established himself as an owner that is going to allow things to play out. And I think that's a good thing and a benefit for the chances of this being successful.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I was just going to say, bringing in a guy like Troy Aikman, who was extremely instrumental in the hirings of both John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley coming in here for this regime. It turns out had been talking to Hafley on the phone for years about head coaching before any of this happened, which I think is awesome to have Troy here and engaged, an ultimate winner in everything he's ever done. Thank you, Kyle, for the knowledge, man. It's elite, and we appreciate it. On behalf of all the fans, I know they appreciate it, but I do. I get a front row seat a couple times a week. Thank you, man.
Yes, sir, Grease.
All right, that's Kyle Krabs. Of course, Jeff Zgonina left a little bit early today, but not without dropping the knowledge and the wisdom from his standpoint. Former Dolphin, played for a lot of teams, has coached defensive line. What a privilege it is to have him here on this show. Speaking of which, we'll be back on Monday. Schedule reacts and a lot more. Until then, keep coming back wherever you're watching us or listening to us, downloading us right now for more of Kyle Krabs as he keeps you locked on the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Dolphins channel on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network.